Story lovers. Sometimes the stories we uncover aren't just strange or mysterious, they're heartbreaking. They're gut-wrenching. This is one of those stories. There are a few graphic and distressing details revealed at the end, details that will stay with you. So, I urge viewer discretion. But before we get into today's chilling tale, if you are like me and you find yourself drawn to the strange and the mysterious, you've come to the right place. This is all we do here. And if you want to get your fill of these kinds of stories, we upload every Tuesdays and Thursdays. If that's your kind of thing, please give the like button a little nudge for me, and also please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Alright, let's get into today's story. Imagine a cold February morning in Anchorage, Alaska. February 2nd, 2012. A young man, just starting his day, pulls off a 4-lane highway into a vast, snowy parking lot. He passes car after car, until he stops in front of a little shack, brightly teal-colored. The Common Grounds, a popular coffee shop. This young man is a barista there. After parking, he walks up to the employee entrance and takes out his key. But the door is already unlocked. He knew the girl who'd worked the night before would have locked up, 18-year-old Samantha Koenig. She was new, but responsible. Still, people make mistakes, right? So, he goes inside, but the place is a mess. Napkins on the ground, towels strewn about, cups everywhere. It was like she had just walked out in the middle of her shift. And then, he sees it. Just like the door, the cash register is unlocked. When he opens it, the money's gone. That's when he knew something was terribly wrong. He'd been robbed. He calls his boss right away. The night before, Samantha had asked her boyfriend, Dwayne, to pick her up after her shift. He'd arrived at about 8:30 p.m., a half-hour late because of his own work. He looks around, but the shop is dark and there's no sign of Samantha. He walks up to the window, presses his face against the glass, and peers inside. Nobody. Earlier, Samantha and Dwayne had argued. She'd accused him of cheating. He'd been dismissive. And as Dwayne walked back to his truck, his mind raced. Maybe she didn't want to see him after the fight. Maybe she got a ride home from someone else. Still, he texts her, asks if she's okay. But there's no response. Even though they were fighting, he loves her, he has to know she's safe. He goes to her house. Her father, James, answers the door. Samantha isn't there. He hasn't heard from her either. They go inside, they call, they text, nothing. Then, Dwayne's phone lights up. A text from Samantha. She says she needs time, she's going to be with friends for a few days. It's like she's trying to make it sound like she is okay. It's like she's trying to hide something from them. But James knew his daughter. She would never do this. She would never just disappear without telling him directly. She would never ignore his calls. They stay up late into the night, trying to reach her. But nothing. The next morning, James goes to the police and files a missing person report. An officer calls the coffee shop owner, who tells them about the robbery. They ask for the security footage, and it is not going to be a pleasant story to see. Some officers call Samantha's friends, family. Nobody knows where she is. Others go to the coffee shop itself. They look for a struggle, and they find nothing. A panic button, right under the counter, untouched. And even though her father knows better, the police think she must have robbed the shop and left. But how? She didn't have a car. She couldn't have walked. It was too cold. This isn't a walkable city. It's at this point that the real horror starts to unfold. You know, stories like these, they stick with you. If you're finding this as compelling as I am, and you haven't done it already, please take a second and hit that like button. And before you forget, subscribe to the channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss our uploads every Tuesdays and Thursdays. I really appreciate you being here for this kind of storytelling. Let's get back to it. Later that day, the owner sends the security footage to the police. No audio. It shows Samantha working, cheerful, busy. Then, someone comes to the window. They order a drink. Samantha turns to make it, then she turns around and freezes. She steps back, hands up. A robbery. A threat. She turns the lights off, kneels down, back to the window, still, for a long time. Then, she gets up, opens the register, and scoops out money. She walks back to the window, and hands it to a shadowy figure. Then, she kneels again. 2 minutes pass. The person outside leans in through the window, tying her hands. The image is grainy, you can't see who it is, but you can see it's a man, wearing a big sweatshirt and a hat pulled down over his face. He jumps through the window, shuts it, grabs Samantha and pushes a gun against her back. Then, he marches her out to a white pickup truck, puts her inside, and drives off. The police, the FBI. They hit dead ends. There's no evidence, only this grainy footage. Then, James, Samantha's father, rallies the entire city of Anchorage to look for her, and when that story hits national news, they are now watching this too. Strangers donate thousands to offer a reward for information about where she might be, but even with all the news coverage and the increasing reward, no one had any information. No one saw or heard anything, and Samantha never contacted her boyfriend or father again. Then, on February 24th, 3 weeks after she disappeared, Dwayne gets a text from Samantha's phone. It directs him to a sign in a nearby park. Dwayne, James, and the police, they race to the park. There, on a bulletin board, a Ziploc bag. Inside is a ransom note, a photo of Samantha. She's blank-faced, looking off to the side. A man is holding a newspaper dated February 13th. A proof of life photo. At least she was alive on February 13th. The demand, $30,000 into her account immediately. 6 months later, a portion of the money is deposited and the authorities wait. 3 withdrawals are made in Anchorage. But by the time the authorities arrive, the person is always gone. The security footage shows a man wearing a ski mask and sunglasses. Then, more withdrawals, in Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. One of the cameras in Texas gets a look at his car, a small white Ford Focus going east on a highway. A patrolman spots the car in a hotel parking lot. He waits and pulls the driver over. An Alaskan named Israel Keys, 34 years old. Inside, they find ski masks, clothing, a gun, Samantha's cell phone, and debit card. Keys denies any involvement, but then, after seeing the evidence, he says he will tell them the full story. But he has to have an Americano, a peanut butter Snickers, and a cigar first. And when he began to speak, what he said was so horrific that the FBI still hasn't released the full transcript. It is February 1st. Keys is going to rob the coffee shop. He asks Samantha for an Americano. And when she turns around, his plan changes. He's going to steal not just money, but her. He pulls his gun on her, she puts her hands up. He ties her hands. He ties her up. He shoves napkins into her mouth, marches her outside, to his car. Then, he tells her if she tries to escape, he will kill her. He takes her phone and sends that text to Dwayne. Then, he tells Samantha he's going to hold her hostage for ransom money. She says her family is poor, they won't have much. Keys says, "Don't worry, they'll figure it out." They drive around Anchorage for hours, and then, he puts her in the back seat under a top. He goes inside his house to check that his daughter and his girlfriend are still sleeping. He tells her if she tries to escape, he would kill her. Then, he leads her to his shed, blindfolds her. He sits her on an upturned bucket. He puts a rope around her neck, anchoring each end of it to the wall. He turns his radio all the way up and repeatedly reminds her if she made any noise he would just kill her. He gives her cigarettes, and tells her everything's going to be fine. Then he goes inside, checks on his family again, drinks some wine and then gets a cup of water and goes back to the shed to give it to Samantha. He tells her everything is fine, the ransom is sorted, and he will let her go. Then, he cuts her bonds and the zip ties. It is a cruel trick. He just wanted to see what she would do. He ties her up again, much more tightly this time. When he looked at her face, he said she was just resigned to what was going to happen. Then, he left her locked in the shed, went into the house to check his family one more time. Then he went back to the shed, and when he stepped inside he smelled urine and sweat. He assaulted her. He was standing above her getting his clothes on when she looked up at him, and asked, "Are you going to kill me?" He says, "Yes, I am." He puts on his leather gloves. She tries to talk him out of it, but he says there is no other way. He was very impressed with her bravery. Around 4 a.m., he stabs her, then chokes her until she stops moving. She never made a sound after that. He leaves her in the shed. He showers. He wakes his daughter and tells her to get ready for their vacation in New Orleans. Then, he makes his daughter breakfast and takes her to the airport. They go on a 2-week-long luxury cruise, and then when they came back he went into his shed, dressed her in new clothes, put makeup on her face, braided her hair, then stitched her eyelids open. He then took photos of her with the newspaper, making that proof of life photo that was given to Dwayne. He cut her into pieces and threw her body in a frozen lake. Samantha was not his first victim. He was a serial killer who specifically preyed on random people. He enjoyed watching them die. He had kill kits hidden all over the country, and he didn't care about age, race, or size. Everyone was a target of opportunity. He wanted Samantha the second he saw her. Everything was a lie. It was all for his enjoyment. Keyes admitted to killing Samantha and also an elderly couple in Vermont, but he killed himself in his cell before naming his other victims. 11 bodies is the best guess from a drawing they found in his cell. And that's it, guys. A truly horrific story. If you were moved by it, if you found it informative, and you haven't done so already, I would really appreciate it if you would hit that like button. Also, please subscribe to the channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads every Tuesdays and Thursdays. I really do appreciate your support, and until next time, I'll see you in the comment section.